What's good, y'all? It's the one and only King Cow 516 live in the mix, and this is the Swish Flames podcast. Be sure to check out the website www.swishflames.com. Hit us up on the Twitter at Swish Flames, and also check out our brand new Facebook page. If you go on Facebook, you can just search Swish Flames podcast. Hit a like, support, subscribe, follow. We definitely appreciate the support. You guys have been awesome. So now that the NBA season is officially over, shout out to the Milwaukee Bucks on winning once again the NBA championship. But now that the season is over, we're going to move a lot of our content into free agency rumors, well into free agency. When free agency happens, we'll be covering a lot of the moves and giving opinions on the movements around the NBA. And also the draft is next week, so we'll hit up some coverage with the draft as well. And also Team USA is still lurking. And so a lot of the content now in the offseason will kind of be accumulation of these things. And so we got plenty of content coming, a lot more coming. So please hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the follow, whatever platform you're listening on. We definitely appreciate the support. Anyway, with that said, we're going to get into this Mark Spears report in the Undefeated that the Lakers are looking for a veteran point guard, which we're well aware that the Lakers are point guard hunting. And with all these rumors that are kind of springing out there, it looks like Dennis Schroeder is not the number one option the Lakers are looking at. You know what I mean? They're looking to kind of upgrade from Dennis Schroeder. So if they can find somebody that they believe is an upgrade from Dennis Schroeder, it looks like they're looking to pull that trigger if they can make it happen. But in this report, it goes after two very, very elite cream of the crop point guards. The Lakers are interested in Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook. Now, these are two game changers at the point guard position for the Lakers. I mean, both of these players are obviously better than Dennis Schroeder and what he has to offer. Both these players are all-star caliber. And on the Lakers team, both these players would be the third option. And that's a hell of a third option, either way you go. So if the Lakers are able to pull the trigger on either one of these guys, it'll be a good look if they can. Right? Now, with Chris Paul's situation in Phoenix, with the season they just had, you know what I mean? I find it hard to believe Chris Paul will leave at this time. He does have one more year on his deal for about $45 million, but he can opt out and re-sign. If I'm Chris Paul, I don't know what he's going to do as far as contract-wise, but I find it hard for him to be traded right now. And I think, just logistically speaking, even for the Lakers to trade out that amount of salary, because you have to match. Let's just say Chris Paul opts in. To have to trade $45 million worth of salary is a lot to trade out. You know what I'm saying? And does Phoenix want what you're offering? That's another question. Now, maybe Phoenix would do right by Chris Paul because they appreciate what he did for them this year. But if I'm Chris Paul, I would be thinking that I'm at least give Phoenix one more year and see how it goes after a season like this. But who knows what's in Chris Paul's head? I don't know. And he may want to opt out just to get his last final big contract and guaranteed years long term. You know, so maybe he wants a 3-year deal. I don't know if he can get a 4-year deal from a team, but at least a 3-year deal I would imagine he'll be able to get if he opts out. And so logistically speaking, it's harder for the Lakers in particular to get Chris Paul. Because if he opts out and gets that longer deal, yeah, you can work out a sign and trade with Phoenix, but whenever you operate in a sign and trade and you're the team receiving the person who was signed and traded, you become hard cap. And so whatever that hard cap limit of the salary cap is that the NBA sets, you can't go over that limit. And with so much money already invested in Anthony Davis and LeBron James, to get Chris Paul in at that high number and being hard cap literally kills the rest of your depth. You won't have much space to bring back anybody on that team. You know what I mean? Maybe one player who's a free agent. You know, you're basically stuck with the minimum. And that's what you can offer players if you go like that and be hard cap. It's going to be hard to maneuver. And plus, the Lakers still have one more season of dead money from Luol Deng, about $5 million. So that doesn't help either. So the reality is, Russell Westbrook is under contract. So if the Lakers trade for Russell at his money owed and what he's owed, yes, they'll get rid of assets to match the money, but at least it won't hard cap them. So they can go over that hard cap level, which means they can bring back some of these role players, like a Caruso. You know what I mean? Now, in the deal, it talked about THT Kuzma, right? We know that THT is a very well sought after player. It actually was the reason why the Lakers didn't get Kyle Lowry in the midpoint this past season, because they didn't want to include THT. But in the case of bringing Russell Westbrook, I think if you're the Lakers, you could do that deal. Russell's in his 30s, but he's in his younger 30s, so he has a little more tread on the tires left. Now, we do get concerned about Russell Westbrook because he does depend on his athleticism, so how long is that going to last? But for the most part, in his career, he's been very durable. So, Russell Westbrook would be the easier transaction to make happen, right? So the Lakers would have to send Taylor Horton-Tucker, Kyle Kuzma, and Dennis Schroeder. Schroeder and Taylor Horton-Tucker would be signing trades. So this they will hard cap the Wizards. So the Wizards would have to fall in line with the salary, which it probably won't affect them as much because they're just trading Russell Westbrook and bringing in more assets. So this will kind of be like an offseason for them, and that'll be like the new additions to the team, basically. You know what I mean? And then they might just do some minor other signings around the, around the team. But these would be their major transactions, just bringing in these players from the Lakers. So that's basically the proposed deal on the table that the Lakers are considering for Russell Westbrook. And let me tell you something. I think there's life behind these rumors in particular, because the thing we know about LeBron James is that LeBron James definitely is going to go for the best thing he can get. So we know him and Chris Paul are tight and cool. So we know that at least conversations between him and Chris Paul can be had to see where their heads are at. And remember, before LeBron went to the Lakers, Chris Paul was trying to recruit him to the Rockets. So we know that they've wanted to play with each other. And we know that LeBron was trying to get Chris Paul to the Lakers. But the Lakers didn't like the idea of that contract where Chris Paul was made. And in their defense, Chris Paul was coming after a couple seasons of being hurt consistently. You know what I mean? When he was playing for the Rockets. So the Lakers, didn't want to take that chance to bring Chris Paul from OKC. But LeBron has wanted to play with Chris Paul. That's obvious. But I'm pretty sure LeBron has been in both of their ears talking. You know what I mean? Chris Paul, his leadership would be great for the Lakers. He's a pure floor general. He has high IQ as a point guard. He puts people in positions to win. He puts people in positions to score easy buckets. It'll be definitely taking pressure off LeBron. Listen, as much as LeBron has been the whole offense his whole career, I truly do believe LeBron wants to play off ball more and wants to just be able to pick his spots when he dominates the ball. And I think that for him to preserve his career as long as he needs, I think that's the smart evolution of his game. You know what I mean? And so I do believe we'll see LeBron play even the power forward a lot more. We'll see AD play the 5 a lot more. Because if they get a point guard like Chris Paul, I mean, pick and roll between Chris Paul and LeBron, pick and roll between Chris Paul and AD, that's very good. And AD, I do believe, is going to be hungry, and I think he's going to have a bounce back season. But the one thing I will admit, AD's chemistry with Dennis Schroeder wasn't that good. So Chris Paul would be just a higher level pure point guard that they had similar when Rondo was out there. But Chris Paul at this stage is just definitely way better than Rondo. But Rondo's IQ, his playmaking ability is up to par with people like LeBron and Chris Paul. And so the Lakers flourished well when Rondo was there. Even times when LeBron didn't play, Rondo was able to keep the ship straight. You know what I mean? Schroeder disappeared this past playoff. Once AD went down, he disappeared. And that was the time they needed him to step up. You wouldn't have to worry about that with a guy like Chris Paul. He has great mid-range, and he's a decent three-point shooter. So off drives from LeBron, or if AD's kicking out, whatever, Chris Paul can hit that shot for them. And he can create shots. And so spacing will be very good with Chris Paul. So ideally, I do think Chris Paul is a slightly better fit over Russell Westbrook. But with Russell Westbrook, some of the benefits you get, I mean, this guy's motor is at an all-time level. I mean, just the way this guy plays hard. I mean, I know he's gotten criticized for like some of the rebounds he's got because he takes them away from big man. It's just like he's going full force all the time. So he's just out hustling the big man to the rebound. This guy's amazing. I mean, basically, I look at Russell Westbrook. He's like the guard version of Giannis. Or I should say Giannis is like the power forward version of Russell Westbrook. It's just pure determination. Russell Westbrook is also great at running the floor. Great in transition. Great in leading the fast break. So you put him with LeBron on the fast break, that's very, very, very troubling and dangerous because they both run the fast break pretty well. They both slash pretty well. So they'll feed off each other from that standpoint. And man, he attacks the basket at a high level, right? So you need to go get a bucket, a high percentage bucket. You can give it to Westbrook. He can go get you a high percentage bucket. Take it right to the rack. So now you have another guy who can take it at a high level. Which, with all due respect to Schroeder, Schroeder is pretty good at that too. You know what I mean? But he's no Russell Westbrook going to the rack. Not with that motor. But with Russ, you do have to say there are a couple of questions. He isn't a great shooter, so the spacing when him, AD, and LeBron on the floor won't be as good. Now, LeBron has become a pretty decent three-point shooter. Not a great three-point shooter, but a pretty decent three-point shooter. He's usually shooting above league average now. AD's hit or miss. He had a little offseason with a three-pointer, but AD's hit or miss. Sometimes he can get hot. But you need guys to hit shots, and that'll be some of the things they would have to figure out if they bring Russ along. I mean, at times, if you're staggering LeBron and Russ, that it won't even matter because you could have three other guys who can hit shots on the court with Russ and AD. But when they all three play together, they're going to have to figure out that spacing. So that's the only reason why I'll give Chris Paul the edge. But I would say Russell Westbrook is still more likely just because of the contract situation. Once again, Russell is signed. So it'll just be the Lakers having to match his salary and trading for him, and it won't hard cap them, meaning that they'll be able to make more maneuvers outside of that of significance of bringing back some of their own role players that need to be re-signed. So if the deal goes as is for Russell Westbrook, then it'll be like a guy like Alex Caruso, who's a free agent. You can have more room to bring him back. You know, Wesley Matthews is a free agent. You can bring him back if you choose to. You know what I mean? It'll just bring more room to bring some of their own free agents who might be making more than the minimum. Instead of confining them, if they were able to work a sign and trade with Chris Paul, that just basically hard caps them and it confines them, you know, to try to mostly add minimum players, and they'll lose a lot of the depth that they have in the and the familiarity they have with guys who are already part of the team. You understand what I'm saying? So it's Chris Paul is a slightly better fit to me, but Russell Westbrook is more likely. But we'll see if this happens. What's your opinion? What do you think? Who's the better fit for the Lakers? Hit up the comment section. Let us know. Once again, this is your boy King Cal 516 signing off. This is the Swish Flames podcast. See you guys next time.